I'm Rip Esselstyn, and you're listening to the Plant Strong podcast. Last week, we interviewed Robert Cheek about his new book, The Impactful Vegan. This week, we talk with a gentleman who was profoundly influenced by Robert, and that guest today is Richard Hubbard. We'll share his rags to riches health story of dropping 150 pounds and becoming plant strong. His secrets to success are right after these words from Plant Strong. After college, Richard Hubbard felt hopeless. It was a stressful time looking for a steady job, and he wasn't moving as much as he was in college, and he loved candy and junk food. Not a good combination for a web and graphic designer who would spend hours sitting at his desk all during the day. Rich avoided doctors because he didn't need a doctor to tell him what he already knew. He was nearly 350 pounds and destined to a life of medications if he didn't wake up and make some changes quickly. Ironically, it was a doctor and a mandatory physical that changed everything. Actually, it wasn't so much the doctor as it was Rich's desire to research the best way to reverse his hypertension. And the solution, you know it, a plant-forward diet. 1 year later, Richard lost over 120 pounds. And since then, he's gone on to lose another 30, and he's become a lean, mean muscle machine. His secret, small, simple, repeatable actions that he takes every single day. Let's hear all about it right now with Richard Hubbard. Hey, Rich Hubbard, welcome to the Plant Strong podcast. What is going on in your world?
Hey, Rip, I'm really happy to be here. It's a pleasure to meet you last year, and it's awesome to be a part of your podcast today.
Well, you have quite the rags to riches health story, and I can't wait to get into it. Yeah, you're right. We met we think it was last summer, and it was in
Exam Room podcast.
It was in New York City. It was at the PCRM kind of gala, honoring kind of the Exam Room podcast. They were doing a live broadcast. It was, of course, Chuck Carroll was there. He was the host. We had Dr. Neil Barnard. We had Dr. Michelle McMacken. We had Dr. Robert Osfeld. And they did a really nice job. And beforehand, they had a little, meet and greet. And that's where I met you. And you came up, you approached me, and you let me know about your incredible journey to plant-based nutrition and what it's done for you, losing over 150 pounds now?
Well, it's probably over 160 pounds now.
160, yeah. And how many years has it been since you've lost the weight?
Well, I lost 120 the first year. Probably took me 11, 12 months to reach 120 pounds. And gradually over the years, it was another 30, 40 pounds.
Right. And you've successfully been able to keep it off, right?
Oh, yeah. I've never regained it since then.
Right. So tell me this, do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister who unfortunately passed. She had an eating disorder for years, and it was sort of expected because she was going downhill for years. But yeah, she's my only sibling.
Got it. Well, sorry about that. Tell me, and so Rich, growing up, at what age did you happen to notice that you were getting heavier and heavier?
Well, I was never super skinny as a kid. I mean, I was never really fat. I would say that I probably was a little chunky, I guess, but I wasn't really that heavy. It wasn't until after college, really. But growing up, though, I did have the standard American diet. I loved candy, go out for Halloween, try not to eat the whole bag, but that was hard to do back then. Yeah. And I did eat a lot, especially junk food. I love candy, Reese's was my weakness back then, one of my favorites. But any candy, you leave it in front of me back then, and I would eat it. I love fast food. My mom did make healthier foods, but at least what I thought that were healthy back then, but still there was a lot of junk food around.
Yeah.
She did encourage salads, at least at supper time. So it's not like there's never healthy foods around, but I definitely crave the bad stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people have a weakness for those. They have just the right combination of everything from that chocolate, the peanut butter, the salt, the sugar. On a good day, how many Reese's peanut butter cups could you down at once?
Depends on how many were there. Well, my dad would typically buy us maybe a candy bar a day. So they did try to control our appetite somewhat, but if there was extra around the house, I would eat it.
Got it. And so you mentioned that, well, when you really started to gain weight was in college.
Yeah. Well, after college.
Oh, after college. And why is that? What was it about after college that was the right kind of confluence of events that allowed you to start gaining more weight?
Well, when I graduated college, it was tough to find a job at first. So I think it was just a stressful time. And I turned to food to cope with the stress. And when I finally located a steady job, it took maybe a year or two. That was a place where there was a lot of junk food around. And I felt like, remember the commercial with Mikey? I forget what cereal it was, Life cereal.
Yeah.
They all said, give it to me, I'll eat it. It was practically any food that was there, I would eat it. And they knew it, and they brought in lots of food, and, Burger King, you name the fast food, they brought it in, the candy, and I would eat it all. And I wasn't exercising like I was in college. I went to college in New York, and when you're in New York, it's impossible to not do a lot of exercise because
Right.
I would do so much walking, and I kept my weight down that way. But I did have the bad diet in college as well, though. It's not like I was eating healthy there, but with all the exercise, it's impossible to gain weight during that time. But all that stopped when I graduated college. I was back in Connecticut. I had my car, so I didn't have to do as much walking. And just bad habits. I would sit all day. Being a graphic designer and web designer,
Yeah.
I would sit all day long. I remember before I adapted this healthy lifestyle, I remember one time I was sitting for probably 8 hours straight. And I remember my legs would feel so stiff and like they were going to give out just standing up. And I knew that wasn't a good thing. Mm-hmm. So I was really gradually ruining my health.
Well, and what you just mentioned there is something that I would say the vast majority of Americans have some sort of a desk job. They're probably sitting for 6 to 8 hours straight. Maybe they get up to go to the bathroom or grab something to eat. But you're right. Sitting is toxic. Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I have to say I love the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It reminds me every hour to stand. So if I'm in a zone and working on something, I take that reminder serious and get moving.
Yeah. Well, so every hour then on the hour, when your Apple Watch dings, what do you do? Do you do squats? Do you go for a walk? What do you do?
I go for a quick walk. Walk to the restroom if I don't have to, because it's all the way at the other end of the hall. Just making sure I get enough steps in. Maybe take a 10-minute break. And
what's your goal these days with steps? How many steps you try and get?
Well, I'm only human. I probably skipped a day or two, being sick or whatever. But ever since 2012, it's been 10,000 plus steps a day. Usually it's average about 12,000 steps a day. Some days are more like 20,000, depending on where I am. But I religiously never go below 10,000.
Wow. That's, you're very committed to your steps.
I am. I'm too afraid of being inactive after losing the weight.
Wow. So it sounds like the only thing that you're as committed to is your diet.
Yes.
The way you eat.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
So I want to let's circle back to that. But first,
Sure.
if you don't mind, I want to dive a little bit deeper into how your weight gradually ballooned and ballooned and ballooned. So
Yeah.
what weight were you at after you graduated from college?
I'd say it was probably 230. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably right around there.
230. And
Yeah.
then
I'm 6'3", so
and you were what?
I'm 6'3".
And you're 6'3".
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get to your weight of 350 pounds?
Well, I think the weight came on probably quickly. I mean, I remember being unhealthy all through the late 90s, all through the 2000s until 2012. I'd say it probably took a couple of years to get to my peak weight of. I stopped weighing myself at 345, so I don't know how high I really got, but I didn't make any changes back then. It's just for some psychological reason, I didn't want to see it go over 350. So I thought, I was telling myself that I'm not that heavy,
Right. Well, and so going from 230 to 310, 320, 330,
Yeah.
how did your body deal with that? And how did you feel?
Oh, I wasn't feeling good. I really wasn't. I noticed I was starting to get neuropathy the last few years before I lost the weight in my feet, and I thought that's a bad sign. And my mom was a diabetic at the time. I'll get into that later on, how she reversed it, but and it was in my family. So I thought, oh my God, I might be turning diabetic. But still, I didn't make enough changes. I found out I was pre-diabetic at my first physical, but I was getting all these symptoms. I was tired. I didn't have much energy. I also got depressed. Parts of the 2000s. I remember feeling really low for a while, and I was never clinically diagnosed with depression back then, but I was definitely not feeling my usual self.
Right. How would you deal with that when you got a little bit, down or depressed? Would you just
turn to food?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thankfully, I never did drugs. I was never into that. I was never a drinker, so substance abuse was never an issue, but it was always the food.
So it was food abuse, not substance abuse.
Exactly.
And how old are you now?
I'm 49.
49. So in 2024. So, okay. So you were in your 30s when you started kind of
yes
gaining the weight.
Oh yeah. Pretty much all my 30s, I was heavy until the very end.
Yeah. And so, walk me through, so how do you, again, talk to me, what does a day or a week of food look like when you're going from 230 to your 330 or 340? Sure. I mean, is it just fast food? Is it like,
yeah, here's an example.
Is it 15 soda pops a day? Is it 20 pieces? I have no idea.
Pretty much all that. But yeah, to start with, I would usually go to some kind of fast food like McDonald's. I used to love their McMuffins. And I wouldn't just order one. I'd order 5. It was insane. And I remember figuring out the calories one time. This was after I was healthy. I remembered my diet. And it was over 10,000 calories.
A day.
I had no idea how I survived a day. It was just insane. And I think it's miraculous I didn't have worse health conditions than I did. But anyway, I had Egg McMuffins.
Okay.
I remember having
5. Why?
Yes.
Okay.
It depended on my day. I mean, sometimes 3 or whatever, but I could go for 5. I'd go to McDonald's for dinner. I remember I would get like what were they? 2. Trying to think of what they were called. It wasn't a quarter pounder. It was something
McRib?
like it. What's that?
The McRib or the
No. For some reason, I didn't like the McRib. It was always anyway. It's something like a quarter pounder. I had the cheese and the ketchup, mustard.
Yeah.
And I was addicted to McDonald's. I would love their fries. Just way too much food.
Well, what would you drink during the day?
I thought I was helping myself with the diet soda, which I know definitely wasn't helping.
So was that loaded with aspartame?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
And so how many diet sodas would you have during the day?
Probably 2 liter.
2. Okay.
Yep. I would pour it into my water bottle when it was gone. Add some more, and really bad habits.
And so were you eating any like fruit and vegetables back then, or was it just highly processed?
I did like fruit. That's the interesting thing. And I did like veggies. It was never that I didn't like them. It's because I didn't eat enough of them. I used to eat apples often. Maybe I'd have an apple a day. I still eat apples. In fact, I eat 2 apples a day now. But anyway, back then it was, maybe an apple or strawberries. I did eat some veggies, just not enough. I would eat maybe some broccoli once in a while, but never enough.
All right. So 2 apples a day you're doing now, and you always like apples. Any particular type of apple that you are drawn to?
I love the Pink Lady and the Honeycrisp.
Uh-huh.
I always buy organic now.
Yeah, those are 2 good apples for sure. I like the Macoun and the Pacific Rose. Those are probably my favorite.
I haven't tried the Pacific Rose. I haven't seen it around here, but
Pacific Rose. It's only available during a limited month or 2 during the year, and they come from New Zealand. So next time you see Pacific Rose, grab it. So Rich, you're kind of starting to spiral out of control with your health, your weight, your blood pressure, cholesterol, pre-diabetes, all that. What was your wake-up call?
In 2012, I finally had to do a physical. I'm so grateful for the state of Connecticut because they were changing the insurance requirements back then. At first, I thought it's a drag, and I didn't want to go to the doctor, and I hated the thought of it. But in order to get premiums that were affordable, I'd have to get a physical. Yeah, and that saved my life because I'm even today I wonder how long would I put it off if I didn't have that physical. So that physical woke me up. I reluctantly found a doctor. I used Google. Found one in my area, and he confirmed what I already knew. He said the words that always scared me, that I was morbidly obese.
So he used those words too, yeah. And so
I knew I was obese, but just hearing those words, that was scary for me.
Yeah. And how can you remember how he delivered that news to you? Were you both sitting down, and was you looking in your eyes and said, "Hey"?
Yeah, this was the first physical. He told me straight out, and I need to do something about it. He recommended back then that I join Weight Watchers. I think back then, during my physical, Weight Watchers had some program for Weight Watchers for men, but I never did that. I wanted to do my own research, and then I'm glad I did.
And so, okay, so you went home after that appointment with the doctor.
Yep.
And what did you do as far as how did you do your own research?
Well, the first thing, actually, I went home, but did research about weight loss, but that's not what changed me. It was a follow-up appointment. And because he did a follow-up because he wanted to see if my blood pressure would go down. He threatened to do meds if my blood pressure wasn't better the next appointment. So I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, and my blood pressure was still high. So he put me on meds. and I didn't want to go on meds. I remember telling my mom at the time that I'm going to have to go on meds, and she said, everybody's on something, no big deal. She's a nurse and she gets meds all the time. So it's like, she thought it was a part of everybody's life, just, as you get older, you're going to be on meds.
Well, let me ask you this, Rich, what was it about meds in your mind that made them so distasteful to you?
You know what it was? It was, I didn't like any lab work either at the time because I was so out of touch with everything medical. I avoided everything for years. So I read one of the side effects was, oh, you have to do follow-up lab work every 3 months or 6 months.
Right.
I thought, I don't even like to do it yearly. so that was a factor. And when I read all the other side effects, I thought, well, I want to see if I can do this on my own. And to be honest, I don't know how I got this drive because my dad, he was on probably like 20 meds at the time. He was the type to take one med to cover the side effects of another.
Yeah.
And my stepmom was the same way too. So yeah, I have all these people around me who are heavily medicated, and they weren't really getting better. I see my dad. He's got various problems over the years. Most recently he got giant cell arteritis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Inflammation of the arteries. But all these conditions over the years that I saw them develop, they have insomnia, and I didn't want to go down that road. My dad would always say to me for years, "Wait till you get my age. You're going to have all these conditions." So it's almost like I'm fighting back in my mind. I don't want to be who they are at that age. I don't want to be relying on meds. I don't want to have insomnia and all these other issues that they're dealing with. Constipation that my stepmom deals with. I just didn't want any of that.
No. Good for you for not wanting any of the normal, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as
Yeah.
all it took was Googling how to reverse hypertension at the time. That led me to some plant-based diets. I didn't know at the time I was eating plant-based, but the foods they were telling me to eliminate eventually turned into a plant-based way of eating.
Right. And so that was in 2012.
Yes.
And so because I know that you didn't go full bore or full kale until 2016. So what did 2012 to 2016 look like, and how much weight were you able to lose doing it that way?
I did lose a lot of weight. I mean, that's where I lost the first 120 pounds during that first year. But I'd say I was going toward whole food plant-based that first year.
Yeah.
Some people are plant-based and still eat meat. So I guess you could say I was plant-based, but still had minimal, poultry at the time until 2016. But it really was a plant-based diet. As I gradually learned more and more foods to cut out, the only animal product I had during that time was probably turkey, which I'm so glad I gave up. But and also eggs and yogurt. So those three foods I would eat probably almost daily back then, but it was small servings. Really, the bigger servings were the veggies.
Right.
The salad took over as Dr. Furman's advice I learned in 2012. Yeah, I would have huge salads. So
good.
It was the veggies that were helping.
Good. So you were doing it. Probably sounds like 90% right, except for the stragglers of the eggs, the turkey, and the yogurt. Any particular type of yogurt that you like?
Yeah, and at the time, I don't know how I got it down because I hated the taste of it. It was the Fabergé Greek yogurt. It was the no sugar added. And at first, I hated the taste of it, but I forced myself because it was so high in protein. I didn't know better at the time. And here I had a personal trainer telling me up the protein. So that was my go-to protein. And I hated the taste of it.
So, I want to come back to your trainer and how much protein he wanted you to be consuming on a daily basis. But first, so you were able to lose 120 plus pounds that first year. That's
Right.
That's pretty substantial. And I know something that you were dealing with that everybody I think deals with, that is gotten large and then lost a substantial amount of weight, and that is loose skin. And so tell me, where are you with your I guess your fight with loose skin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very fortunate in that my neck actually came back because when I looked at the pictures back then, I didn't really have much difference between the chin and the neck.
Right.
My arms came back with the strength training. I mean, I still have a little loose skin if I don't have enough muscle there. The muscle kind of disguises it. But the one area that never tightened on its own was my belly.
Right.
And I told myself for 5 years that if it doesn't tighten after 5 years, I'm going to do the tummy tuck. It was a really hard decision because, as you could tell with me avoiding doctors, I wasn't in favor of surgery either, but that was a necessary evil. I talked to many doctors. Mm-hmm. I even had a talk with Dr. Furman, who he's straight up with everybody. You know how honest he is. So I told him, is there any way I do this with diet? And he told me the only way is with surgery with that amount of skin. So I gave it 5 years because I know that, you know, with time, some skin settles, and it does. And it did settle in other places, but never in the belly. So I did my homework. I found a doctor in New York City, and I went with him, and it's been a decision I never regretted since, because you know, seeing that skin in the mirror, I mean, I know it's also a reminder of where I was, but also the scars are a reminder of where I was too, so it's not like I'm going to forget. And I think it's also an incentive to keep going too, because I don't ever want that skin to you know, expand again.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, good for you. It sounds like it was well thought out. You were very patient with it all. You know, you took 5 years, and then after 5 years, you decided, okay, it's time for me to, move on with this procedure. And I know several people that have had that procedure. One of which that I've had on the podcast several times, Adam Sudd.
Yeah, I reached out to him too. Yeah, he's another person who advised me.
Yep. And I know that he's very happy with the procedure, and he wears those scars like you, like a bit of a badge of honor, and he also uses them as a reminder of where he was.
Exactly. Yeah, because I'm not going to want to go back to the old ways, you know, and waste thousands of dollars on the surgery. You know.
Yeah.
And also being vegan, that really has helped me stay in line, because as an ethical vegan now, if somebody has something that, even if they say, oh, it's only, moderation, what's the big deal? You know, as an ethical vegan, there's no way I would eat that.
Yeah. So let's circle back, Rich, to, I think this is part of you trying to gain muscle mass, was because you're trying to deal with the loose skin.
Yes.
And so you had a personal trainer, who advised you to eat how many grams of protein per day?
100 grams of protein a day.
Just so people heard that, 200 grams of protein a day.
That was insane. I just couldn't. Knowing what I know now is just insane.
And that was why you were doing those high protein yogurts.
Yeah.
For the reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
And he also recommended whey at the time, which I'm so grateful that I had an allergic reaction. It wasn't for me, so I went with a plant-based protein, which I still would avoid now, but at least back then it was a better choice. But still, my doctor told me at the time, and he's not even plant-based, but he said 200 grams of protein, I'm going to get liver and kidney problems if I stick with that. So
is this the same doctor that also looked you in the eye and said that you were morbidly obese?
No, he's since retired.
Okay. And was that doctor able to see the success that you've had?
Yeah, I shared it with him.
And what does he think of what you've done?
Oh, he was totally on board with everything I did.
Yeah.
Except for a follow-up appointment when I guess he forgot how I ate, because he says, "You mean you don't even eat fish or eggs?" So, you think he'd get it by then, but anyway.
So he knew you were plant-based, and he thought you were still doing some fish and eggs.
Yeah. It's the ignorance out there.
No, yeah, it runs rampant. Definitely. Yep. It's everywhere. So at what point did you decide, okay, eating 200 grams of protein a day is ridiculous. I need to go a smarter, more scientific route. And what led you to then Robert Cheek and kind of his counsel?
Just doing Googling vegan bodybuilders. I came up with this website, and honestly, he really changed my life. As much as Dr. Furman did in 2012, I credit him for opening my eyes to being full-blown vegan. Him and I became great friends after that too. He's an awesome guy, and I just want to thank him for that. He had this book called Shred It, that I stumbled upon with Googling, and he wasn't talking about high protein. He wasn't mentioning, obviously, animal products that all the other personal trainers I've seen over the years were talking about. He was doing this on a plant-based diet, and he had a 13-week journal, and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. If he can do it, maybe I can too. Mm-hmm. And after 13 weeks, I was building better muscle than when I was eating animal products. And I was feeling better about myself. And remember, I thought in my mind that I was going to stop after 13 weeks. Mm-hmm. But I felt so great after the 13 weeks, I never wanted to go back. And watching videos too over the years, and I realized I was becoming more and more ethical about it. I didn't want to go back after that.
That's fantastic. And do you know that it is our buddy Robert Cheek? He just turned 44.
Yes.
A couple days ago. And he just announced the launch of his new book, The Impactful Vegan.
Yeah, I'm proud that he gave me an advance copy. It's an awesome book.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to be sure to have, be sure to have him on the podcast so he can talk all about his new book.
Yeah.
You're right.
He's been an incredible influence, because also I became open about how I ate after that, my lifestyle, because before that I would shy away. I would do vegan challenges. I wrote about it in my blog even before I met Robert Cheek, just because I thought, it's a good way to kickstart weight loss, and good to challenge myself. But I those were only temporary challenges. But when I met Robert Cheek, he was selling the sweatshirt that says vegan on the back, and he had a workout shirt, no meat, no problem. So I thought, I'm going to wear this during the 13-week challenge, just be a good talking point for people at the gym. And it was. And I love the reaction that I got. And people would say, oh, they can never do that. So I thought to myself, well, watch me. I'm going to build muscle with this shirt, and you're going to change your mind. Right. So ever since then, I've been wearing vegan shirts at the gym. I have a huge variety, some kind of plant-based message that I want to get out there, because I want people to know that, I'm vegan, but I work out hard. I'm building muscle. I'm taking care of my body. And it's not just weak little vegans out there. There's a variety of people that are vegan, and here's one example.
Yeah. Tell me about what happened with some of your numbers, like your blood pressure, your cholesterol.
Oh yeah.
Over the course of your transition.
Yeah, it's been incredible. My blood pressure is something like 150 over 110 or something like that, my first physical. And I messaged Chef AJ the other week, because she was talking about her low low blood pressure and people would be concerned.
Yeah.
Mine was like 98 over 65 or something.
Really?
Yeah, and you go to a standard doctor, they're going to be concerned. But I have a plant-based doctor now, and he's totally impressed. And I know that that's where it's supposed to be. If you're not feeling dizzy, you feel normal at that blood pressure, then that's where it's supposed to be. And
yeah, who is your plant-based doctor? Can you share that or not?
yeah, I can. Hold on, let me a sec. It's a lifestyle medicine doctor in Connecticut, in Middletown.
Okay. Yeah. There's so many great lifestyle.
Yeah, he's not an online doctor.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. So you were talking about some of your numbers, your latest and greatest numbers.
Yeah. So the blood pressure went down. The blood sugar. I was borderline diabetic. He didn't do an A1C at the time, which looking back, I don't know why he didn't, because my blood sugar was higher than it should.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was like 130 fasting or something.
Yeah,
but it was high. I guess he was waiting to see if it would come down, which it did with my diet. But still, watching the blood sugar go down over the years, the last time it was checked, my fasting blood sugar was 83. I had my A1C checked. It was like 4.8. But I wished I knew what my A1C was back then. That would have been a great comparison. But just to compare the blood sugar alone fasting, I think that gives you a good picture.
Oh, yeah. I bet you if you had a 130 fasting blood sugar, I bet you your A1C was somewhere in the sevens, high sixes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was even trying to eat healthier prior to that first physical.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying my best. I didn't lose any weight at that point, but that was, can you imagine what it would have been if I was eating the 5 McMuffins? I can't even imagine.
What about your total cholesterol and LDL? Did you happen to know those?
Oh yeah. My cholesterol was over 200 at the time. I don't remember the exact numbers. My LDL was higher too. It was over 150, I'm sure. But recently my total cholesterol is like 126. My LDL was around 70 or 68 or something. So it was impressive. My triglycerides are like 80, I think.
Yeah, those are some champion numbers there. Those are good.
I work hard. I mean, I probably work too hard at the gym, but I don't want to go backwards. And even when I had a knee injury a couple of years ago and I wasn't working as hard, the numbers didn't change. Exercise is a small part of the equation, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you might know my friend Anthony Masiello.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he told me that he did his he changed to plant-based diet without exercising the first year, and he reversed his hypertension as well that first year.
Right.
So it's not the exercise; it helps, but really 95% is the diet.
No, we see that over and over again. Really, so much of this is what you're putting in your mouth. Exercise is so vitally important. Yeah. But as far as losing the weight and bringing down those numbers and so many other things, I think the real culprit there is what's going into your mouth. And then exercise helps on a multitude of other areas that just makes you feel like an absolute, champ.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me you've been doing this full kale since 2016.
Yeah.
How do you cook for yourself? Do you have somebody that cooks for you? How do you work?
I do some batch preparing, prepare the salads ahead of time, big, huge salads every day. The oatmeal, I recently, I think I told you when I had you on my podcast, I started to grow oats and I've stuck with those.
Oh, good.
And I love those now. So what I do is I get ready for work, cook the oats, and they're done by the time I'm getting ready. So I don't mind, cooking that in the morning because gives me time to get the berries ready and the flax and chia seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So, and dinner is just.
Wait, let me stop you for a sec. What kind of berries are you usually eating?
Usually, I have blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries.
Do you have frozen or fresh?
Blueberries. Oh, well, I try to buy organic. If I can't get organic fresh, I get frozen organic.
Got it. Okay, so that was so breakfast. It's the oat groats, berries.
And before I forget, I've been wanting to find the plant oat, the milk you mentioned during the last podcast. Is it going to be at Whole Foods nationally soon? Because I've been looking for it.
So I just happen to have one right here. This is one of them. This is the oat and walnut.
That's one I'm going to try. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Rich. We launched them nationally at Whole Food Market stores as of about 2 weeks ago. And they should be 25% off for a little bit longer. So
nice. They weren't there yet when I checked a couple of weeks ago, but maybe it was the day I went.
Yeah. They were all going into Whole Foods between March. I'm sorry, where are we now? Between February 16th and March 2nd. So they should be there.
Nice. I can't wait to try it. Because ever since you described it, a lot of these plant milks have oil, and I'm really looking forward to trying it.
Oils, emulsifiers, phosphates, refined sugars. Oh yeah, a lot. Okay.
What's that?
Yeah. So that's breakfast.
Yeah. So for lunch is always the big salad. I also
walk me through that big salad so I know exactly how I can make it for myself today.
Sure. Always has to have kale in it. I add arugula.
Now, but hold on. You got to give me more details than that. Is it curly kale? Is it Russian kale? Is it dinosaur kale? What kind of kale?
It's actually, to be honest, I think it's curly kale, but it's a big bag of organic kale that I buy from the supermarket.
Okay.
But I do buy fresh curly kale too, and other kinds. The purple kale I've seen in the stores, I buy that. But usually it's this big bag of kale, organic. I also buy arugula in a package. I always add tomatoes, onions, everything in the G-bombs. I add.
Now, hold on. You're dropping words that people that may not.
You're right. A lot of people won't know G-bombs.
Yeah. So what are G-bombs?
Yep, the greens, the beans. I always add. My favorite is black beans. I'll add on top.
Yeah.
Onions. I'll use scallions too sometimes. I also use garlic. I love garlic. Mushrooms. I eat a variety of mushrooms. Recently, I started with lion's mane. But I love mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, you name it. So berry mushrooms, berries. I don't add those to the salads. I add them to the oatmeal, and I also snack on berries later on in the day, which you'll find out about. And then the seeds. I love pumpkin seeds. Those are my favorite. The sunflower seeds. I also add walnuts. I try not to overdo it with the nuts, but those are my favorites.
Right. And then what about you said ground flaxseed meal and chia seeds?
Yeah, those go in the oatmeal.
Okay. All right. So I think you were in the middle of talking about your salad.
Yeah. So the salad, what I do is recently I started topping it with this organic horseradish mustard. So I was listening to a podcast about the benefits of horseradish.
Wow.
I like the taste of it. I discovered that I love spicy foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I never used to until I became plant-based, but now I love jalapenos, anything spicy. So I add the horseradish mustard. I don't know why that's a tongue twister today. And I also found a vinegar from California, balsamic, that I love, called pomegranate balsamic vinegar. It tastes awesome.
So
I also have a new love for cilantro. fresh cilantro. Ever since, because I had mercury fillings in my mouth for years, I decided to have those removed. And
How long ago? How long ago?
last year.
Yeah, and that
And
how was that? Because I've got some in my mouth as well that I'm thinking about having removed.
they make this process sound scary, but it actually wasn't bad. He did it in 2 different appointments.
Uh-huh.
It was about probably 45 minutes per appointment.
Yeah.
So as long as you have the time, it wasn't really painful. But I was reading during the time how to detox afterwards, and I was eating heavy cilantro and chlorella and things like that. But I realized that I love cilantro, so I kind of stuck with that, and I'll add it to my smoothie.
Oh, and your dressing. So is your dressing for your salad a combination of the horseradish and the balsamic vinegar, and you mix that together with your salad?
Yep.
And how big is your salad? Like, is it a big bowl?
It's huge. I don't know how many ounces, but it's a big bowl.
Right.
It's enough for when other people see me eat it, they say, "How do you eat all that food?"
And how long does it take you to eat that rich salad?
Well, remember, I used to be a binge eater, so not too long. Probably 20 minutes, half hour.
Right. How long does it take you to make it?
Well, remember, I batch cook a lot of it, so probably an hour. But it's every couple of days, maybe.
So an hour, but then when you spend the hour, and that's for how many salads? Like, is that for 4?
Probably 3.
3?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's preparation involved, but, I enjoy the preparation because, you enjoy the benefits. Once you get used to this, you feel good.
Well, what I'm hearing, what I really like, Rich, and I want you to get to, snacking and dinner, but is that you have a routine that you follow, and it sounds like you don't deviate from it.
No, never.
And you've been doing something similar, obviously, for 8 years, and it's worked incredibly well. So I give you huge props and kudos for keeping it simple and being consistent. I think
that's the thing. I think that's the key. I mean, people think it has to be complicated, but I was never a cook. Although now I think trying some of these recipes, I probably could be, but I was never a cook. I like simple things. Keeping it simple.
So what about snacking and dinner?
Yeah. Well, I told you about the 2 apples a day. I love apples. They fill me up when I get hungry. I probably have those, mid-afternoon. If I'm extra hungry, I'll have almond butter, no sugar added, no oil. I'll add that on. Are you familiar with Susie's Thin Cakes?
No.
It has very few ingredients. Has whole grains, like 15 milligrams of sodium, so it's almost nothing of sodium. So really, it's basically just the grains, and I'll add the almond butter to that. Sometimes if I'm extra hungry, I'll make a smoothie if I'm working out. I want something right after. My smoothies, I typically add more kale, cilantro that I told you about. I'll add maybe some fennel, celery. I'm trying to think what else. Banana or berries. Just whatever I have around, basically. Veggies that I'll add to it.
Okay. And dinner?
Maybe I'll make some steamed veggies if I have time, or microwave some organic frozen broccoli or cauliflower. Sweet potatoes. I love purple sweet potatoes. Mm-hmm. That's my favorite. Another favorite is Japanese sweet potatoes. I have sweet potatoes every night for dinner.
Wow. Well, we had some last night. How do you have them? Just eat them plain, or do you top them with something?
Just plain. I find you don't even need it. I mean, I use a lot of spices, so I shouldn't say plain. I mean, I don't use dressing, but I use a ton of spices. I love cardamom. I use turmeric,
Mm-hmm.
coriander, uh,
Well,
just quite a few of them.
yeah. Well, so for those that are listening, you have a blog, and I noticed that you have a blog post that's all about how to ditch the salt.
Yeah.
And you refer to these spices and how they can take the place of salt. So when you say you've ditched the salt, how adamant are you about removing salt from your
It
diet?
has to be very, very low sodium if I eat it. Like I mentioned, the thin cakes, it has to be less than 100, ideally less than 50. But I really avoid processed food. So whatever's in the food is what I get. So I'm sure I'm probably getting 1,500, with all the food that I eat.
Oh, I bet you it's less than that, Rich.
It could be. It could be.
If really you're not eating anything from a packaged box or can for the most part, and you're
Right.
doing your oat groats, your berries, your seeds, your salads, and then your veggies and your sweet potatoes at night, and then your smoothie, I bet you're lucky if you're getting 750 milligrams of sodium over the course
Yeah,
of the day.
it could be. It could be. And I do notice I really am sensitive to sodium and blood pressure.
Mhm.
For those who think that I cured the problem, I've had food with, that I could tell is very salty.
Yeah.
And I checked my blood pressure, over the week after that, over, the few times this happened. And my blood pressure stays elevated for a while after the sodium.
How
It
about
really does make a difference.
that? Now, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about your mother
Yeah.
and your father, how your father, has this giant cell arteritis,
Arteritis. Yeah.
and but your mother, it sounds like she was going down a pretty unhealthy path, and she has followed your lead. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm so proud of her. She was open to this plant-based way of eating because she saw the results I had. And as I mentioned earlier, she's the type who, no big deal, just take a med for it.
Yeah.
And so this was a complete reversal of her attitude. So she fully embraced the plant-based eating. I don't think she's had meat for a couple of years now, and her diabetes is completely gone. This is
Wow.
somebody who was on meds for 40 plus years.
For diabetes,
Yeah, type
type
2.
type 2
Type 2.
diabetes, and
Yeah,
was she overweight?
she was. She was probably she wasn't religious about weighing herself either, but I think when she was at the doctor, she was probably 220 or so, and she's short. She's 5'1" or so,
Right.
5'2". So that was heavy for her, and now she's probably 130.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is she still a nurse?
Well, she retired recently. I'm proud to say she worked until her 70s or early 70s, but she recently retired. But yeah, I mean, she
What
did
did
after all those years.
what did all the other nurses think of her transition?
Well, she wasn't open about it to them. I wish she was, but she's not open about sharing her story with people. I mean, she probably is more now, but yeah, she's not into
Sure.
bragging, I guess.
Well,
I wish she would though.
but weren't the other nurses asking her?
Oh yeah, they did ask about her diet. Yeah.
Yeah. And did
She was like how I was back before we went vegan. I shied away from saying I was vegan
uh-huh.
before me and Robert Cheek. So she would just basically say she added more veggies and fruit.
Right. Just eating more of the veggies and fruit.
Yeah, exactly. But
Well,
they know it works though after seeing her, of course.
okay, so that's fantastic. So it sounds like your parents are no longer together.
No,
What about your father? He's seen your results. Does he have any interest?
no, none at all.
No.
And it kills me because I know it would help him, even if it doesn't reverse some of his conditions. I mean, to have to take sleeping pills and have the sleeping pills not work anymore, and to um, constipation, all these issues that he's complained about over the years, I would say, well, I think more fiber would help you with certain problems, and this might help you for sleeping. And I tried to give him advice over the years. One thing I'll say that he has done, though, is at least he'll try to eat more of these foods, but he still won't eliminate the junk food. He still goes to McDonald's, and he still has these problems. But at least he recognizes my success. He thinks he's too old to change. But even though even though my mom changed, he's still not open.
How old's your dad?
He just turned 80. He's quite a bit older than my mom.
Right. So you should remind him of the story of my father and his heart and my dad's heart disease patients. He had one gentleman that came to him. Let's just say his name was Ed.
Yeah.
Right? And Ed came to him at the age of 86 with severe heart disease. And people that are followers of the podcast have heard this story. But Ed just called my parents a couple of weeks ago to let them know what he was serving at his 102nd birthday party.
Oh my God. Wow. Incredible story.
Yeah. So it's never too late. It's never too late. And your dad at 80 is still a pup. He really is.
Yeah. I know. There's some incredible stories out there. I think maybe if the more he eats these foods, because he realizes the food tastes good now. Maybe if he increases the amount he eats, maybe gradually he'll do it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he got remarried, and my stepmom is the same way as him, and the two of them kind of feed off each other and eat these bad foods. So
yeah. Well,
and she recently found out she's pre-diabetic, so she has to watch it herself.
Yeah. Well, they're like so many other Americans, they're caught in the pleasure trap.
Yeah.
Right? Doug Lyle's pleasure trap. And who's a co-author with Doug? It's Goldman. Yeah. Let me ask, what would you tell someone that's out there that thinks that they can't do what you've done? They just don't have it. What advice would you give to somebody that thinks they can't do it?
I love that question, because I think anybody can do this. It's really about the mindset. You have to you can't really think of the whole picture, especially when you're over 350 pounds like I was. Mm-hmm. If I had thought that I have to lose 150 pounds back then, that would have been too discouraging for me. I don't think I ever would have did it. But I think what did it for me was learning about health along the way. But if you just take it slow, maybe do a challenge like the 13-week challenge I did with Robert Cheek's journal, and not look at the whole picture. I think after this short amount of time, it's easier to stick with. You'll realize how good you feel. The numbers will improve, and I don't think you'll want to go back to it. Dr. Bernard even says, I think it's three weeks.
Right.
He wants people to try the plan, and normally they don't want to go back to their old ways. So that's the important thing, is to not look at the whole picture right away.
Yeah. I mean, we've even got a 7-day challenge, right? It's incredible what can happen in just 7 days.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, Rich, looking back over the last, let's just say since 2012, when you really decided you were going to make a U-turn on your health, what's been the hardest thing?
Honestly, I think giving up foods like cheese at first. That the cravings are real for the first few weeks. But another challenge besides the food was just getting used to the comments. That first year, I was not used to getting attention. And all these people were coming up to me saying, "Oh my God, look how much weight you lost." And I would downplay it. And that was really hard for me. And I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now, you know, in college, I was considered an introvert. That's what my professor said.
Yeah.
And here I am today. I want to share my story. I wrote a book. I want people to get the message. And I think this lifestyle woke up, something within me that it's just I found this important to share to people.
Yeah.
So I never would have discovered that if it wasn't for, what I went through.
Well, you know what? Again, I want to give you huge props for, as an introvert, it sounds like you had to get out of your comfort zone in a big way.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And because there's probably untold numbers of people that are going to hear your story, know of your story, that can identify with you and are going to be inspired to follow your lead. So thanks for that. What exactly is the name of your book? And when did you
Plant-Based Journey to Health?
Plant-Based Journey to Health. And when did that come out?
December of 2020. I made a promise to myself that I would finish it during the pandemic because I didn't have to do my long commute to work. The offices were shut down.
Yeah.
So it gave me some extra time. And I wanted to do it for a couple of years before that. And I made it happen that year.
Got it. Rich, are you single? Are you married? What's your status?
Single, maybe eventually get married. But just enjoying the single life, I guess.
Got it. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of single, whole food, plant-based women that would love to hang out with you, Rich.
Yeah.
That. What's your day job these days?
I'm a webmaster. I work for a local community college. We were in the middle of a merge, so it's kind of a busy time. We were 12 smaller community colleges. Now we're the largest community college in the East Coast.
Wow.
So it keeps me busy. And I'm also, I got my coaching certificate recently from Dr. Furman. And I started a new plant-based coaching initiative with 3 plant-based friends because I really want to give back to the community. I realize that, as much as I like my job, my day job, there's something within me that just wants to give back. I want to see people get healthy, and I think I could make an impression on, on people who are interested in trying it out.
Well, I think that people's health is their number one asset. And
it is.
Absolutely. And if you can help people regain their lost health, that sounds like something that's very exciting. Where can people go to learn more about your coaching program?
Plantbasedcoaches.net. I was going to say .com. I tried to buy .com, but the person who owns it wasn't interested in selling. But anyway.
Got it.
.net.
Right. Well, hey, Rich, this has been terrific. It's good to see you again after seeing you in New York, 9-10 months ago.
That was a great time too.
Yeah, it was. But your rags to riches health story is something else. And I want to thank you for coming on the Plant Strong podcast, sharing how you did it, why you did it, and for continuing to inspire people beyond your circle. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. I was happy to be here.
Yeah. Hey, will you give me a virtual fist bump on the way out here?
Definitely.
All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Plant Strong. Richard wrote a book about his journey called A Plant-Based Journey to Health, from morbidly obese to plant-based athlete. And I'll be sure to link to that in today's show notes. I'll also link to his blog and social media channels so that you can continue to follow Richard's success. He had such great advice for each of us today. Find the foods that you like to eat, make repeatable steps every single day, and always keep it plant strong. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. The Plant Strong podcast team includes Carrie Barrett, Lori Kordowich, and Amy Mackey. If you like what you hear, do us a favor and share the show with your friends and loved ones. You can always leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're there, make sure to hit that follow button so that you never miss an episode. As always, this and every episode is dedicated to my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Cryle Esselstyn. Thanks so much for listening.